Yo, what is going on, everybody? Thank you for clicking on this video. Today we're going over my last rankings for week 5 of fantasy football. Going to be my top 15 quarterbacks and tight ends heading into the week. I have already uploaded my top 30 running back and wide receiver rankings, so if you haven't seen those yet, make sure to go check them out. And before we get into it, just want to mention that a couple different people are on bye. So we got the Chargers, the Seahawks, the Buccaneers, and the Browns. So no Deshaun Watson, no Justin Herbert, no Baker Mayfield, no Geno Smith. Tight end, we're not going to have David Njoku, Gerald Everett, Donald Parham, Noah Fant, and I guess Kate Otten. Now with that out of the way, let's get into these rankings. All right, first up, we're going to have Josh Allen. He's looked unbelievable so far, and Mahomes hasn't quite looked like himself. And given his rushing upside with Allen, he's just been absolutely dominating so far. Lead MVP candidate. I think for right now, Josh Allen is going to be the quarterback one going forward. It's not like Mahomes is bad or anything, but I think Josh Allen has just been playing at an insane level. They're playing the Jags this week, which has a decent defense. They are traveling to London, so that's always kind of scary for fantasy players because it's just such a weird situation. But I think Josh Allen's going to be just fine. We'll probably want to put on a show for those guys over there. And then the other guy in tier 1 is going to be Mahomes, obviously. I know he struggled last week. The Jets defense is very good. They're playing Minnesota this week. I'm not worried about it whatsoever. On to tier 2, I'm going to have Jalen Hurts here. They're playing the Los Angeles Rams this week, which has a pretty solid defense. Jalen Hurts also hasn't quite looked like himself so far this year. I will say last week was probably the best week that he's looked. And so hoping that they can build off of that and keep looking better and better. And even with Jalen Hurts not playing well, he's still been near a top 5 quarterback. He's always has those tush pushes to get really short touchdowns. He's a great quarterback for fantasy because even when he does bad, he's still good for fantasy. After Hurts, we're going to have Tua up next, playing the New York Giants. Now, I know that he struggled last week, but they were playing the Buffalo Bills, which are really good defense. Coming off a 70-point game, it was kind of expected that the shoe was going to drop there, but they're playing the New York Giants, like I said, this week, so that should be a really easy matchup. And I think the Dolphins will get back on track this week. And then the last guy in this tier is going to be Lamar Jackson, who has looked really, really good so far this year. It's been really good for fantasy and for actual football. They're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. It is a division game, which always makes for really weird games. And also this over-under is like 38, 37 points, which is super low, so there doesn't seem like there's a lot of scoring to be expected, but I think Lamar Jackson is just too good, been playing at too high of a level to have him outside of the top 5 quarterbacks. And then on to tier 3, going to be another guy who kind of struggled this past week, but I'm not really too worried about. Going to be Kirk Cousins going up against Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs defense is kind of weird to judge what's going on because they've been really good this year so far, but then Zach Wilson kind of lit them up last week, and I think Cousins will want to bounce back from how he performed last week, and it's going to be a high scoring game because the Chiefs should put up a lot of points as well, and so Cousins will have to keep up. I think he'll have another bounce back week. After Cousins, I'm going to have Jared Goff, who has been performing really well so far this year. Just a really consistent guy for your lineup. He's actually somebody who could definitely pick up and stream this week. He's a really safe option. Playing the Carolina Panthers, not a very good defense, and I think they should have a really good day. And then the last guy in this tier is going to be Anthony Richardson. He has really high upside, so we could be above the guys in this tier if you want to go for it. But right now I got him ranked right here, my quarterback 8. Another division game playing the Tennessee Titans. They have a really good run defense. I don't know exactly how that matches up with the quarterbacks running, but they have a really bad secondary, so they're going to be able to pass the ball a ton on him. And with what we've seen so far from Anthony Richardson, he just seems like a fantasy superstar, and I think is only going to continue to get better and better from here on out. And honestly, I don't think there's going to be many weeks where he's outside this top 8 anymore. And then on to my next tier, I'm going to have Jordan Love here, who has been playing really well for fantasy. He hasn't been as good as it has seemed for actual football. Completion percentage is really low, kind of struggled the past 2 games, but I think we've seen enough where he's a good streaming option, and they're playing the Las Vegas Raiders this week, so that defense just lines up for Love and the Packers to have a great day on them. And then my quarterback 10, I'm going to have Justin Fields here. I've been having a really hard time to rank him this week. I don't know exactly where to put him because he looks so bad so far this year. And then they play the Broncos, who obviously have one of the worst defenses in the NFL, but he threw 4 passing touchdowns. First time he ever went for over 300 yards passing. Really, nice to see, but also it just makes it really hard to predict what's going to happen going forward. They are playing the Washington Commanders this week. This video actually might be coming out afterwards, so it could not really matter at this point because he's already played. But Washington does have a decent defense. They have really good pass rush. Their secondary's been all right. I'm just hoping that Fields is able to build off that performance from last week and really keep going and keep continuing to be good for fantasy at least, because I don't really think that he's the answer for them long term as the actual quarterback, but for fantasy he can still be valuable, I think. And after Justin Fields, it's going to be Trevor Lawrence, who was actually been struggling a lot this year besides week 1. They're playing the Buffalo Bills this week, so that is a really tough defense. Trevor Lawrence did run the ball a lot last week. I'm hoping that he does that more because first off, it seems to help their offense out a bunch, and it's also really good for fantasy. So I'm hoping he can do more of that, really create a baseline, but the Bills defense is really good, so I am kind of scared of him this week. You could definitely pick some guys up like Jordan Love and Jared Goff and stream them over Trevor Lawrence. And then the last guy in this tier, one of the revelations of the season, is going to be CJ Stroud, who has just been balling out of control so far this year. Hasn't thrown an interception, which is crazy to see for a rookie, and honestly has just looked really, really good from every aspect of it. He doesn't run the ball a ton, but he does run it a little bit, so that is nice to have for fantasy, but he is just slicing and dicing all over the field, and they have a decent matchup this week against Atlanta, so I think that he's a solid start, but you could definitely pick him up and possibly have him for the entire year with how good he's been playing. On to my last tier, I'm going to start off with Sam Howell, who will also be playing on Thursday night, so this may be coming out after that game has already happened, but he's looked decent. He definitely has a really strong arm, not afraid to throw it, which can lead to some interceptions, some bad plays, but it also can be valuable for fantasy because you can get some really big shots. He also runs the ball decently well, so that's nice to see, and they're playing the Chicago Bears on Thursday, so that is a really, really easy matchup. So I think that he's a really good streaming candidate this week if you're in a bad position. And then after him, I have Joe Burrow. He's another person who I just don't know what to do with him right now. I think that they should bench him, not like bench him, but like sit him down so we can rest and get healthy because he is only hurting their team right now. But they have a really good matchup this week against the Arizona Cardinals, and they still have really good weapons. He does have another week now to get healthy, so he could be a little bit better. So you could play him if you need to. I'm personally playing Jared Goff in one league over him and Jordan Love in one league over him, so I'm not that excited about him this week, but he's still so talented with great weapons where you could do worse. And then the last guy in this tier, it might feel really bad and really gross, but I'm going to have Daniel Jones here. Now, I know, trust me, I know how bad he looked on Monday night, but they're playing the Miami Dolphins this week, and that is a really, really plus matchup for him. And they're also going to have to try to keep up with them somewhat. And we've seen so far that defense is not that good, so I think that he can have a bounce back game this week. He's a very, very matchup dependent person, so you're going to want to be careful with him, but I think this is one of the weeks where you can play him. I don't have Dak Prescott here. They're playing the Niners this week, so I'm really not excited about that at all. Purdy is on the other side of that, so I don't really want to play Purdy. I think Matthew Stafford is one other guy that is outside of this top 15 who is a really, really interesting streaming candidate. They're playing the Eagles, but the Eagles have actually been really bad against quarterbacks and wide receivers, so I think this could be a really good spot for Matthew Stafford to show out, especially if he gets Cooper Kupp back. So that's one guy you kind of want to pay attention to that could easily be in that tier 5 guys. But yeah, here's my top 15 quarterbacks. Let's move on to the tight ends now. All right, the first guys I'm just going to kind of put up. It's similar to other positions where you kind of got the first couple guys just locked in. So obviously number 1 going to be Travis Kelce. Other guy in this tier, I'm going to have Mark Andrews here. Not really a lot that needs to be said about these two guys. They are the clear best tight ends in the league right now, and you're playing them every single week, no matter what. Don't even have to think twice about it. And then in the second tier, I think TJ Hawkinson has very clearly cemented himself in there as the 3rd or 4th best tight end. The 4th best tight end, honestly, I think at this point could be surprising for some people, but I have Sam Laporta in this tier too. He has shown out every single week so far. He has been such a stud for this offense. Now, they are getting Jameson Williams back, so I guess that could affect him somewhat, but I'm really not that worried about Jameson Williams. I think Sam Laporta is going to keep on dominating, and if I picked him up off the waiver wire, I'm feeling really, really good about it. I wouldn't really be trying to look other places at this point anymore. So now we can move on to where a little bit more questions come in. The first guy I'm going to have in my tier 3 and in my tight end 5, I'm going to have Evan Ingram. He's really been a mainstay in this offense so far this year. They paid him, and he has just been super, super consistent every single week, going like 7 for 50 or 5 or 70 or different things like that. So he's been really, really enjoyable to have. Hasn't really had any blowout games, but you haven't had any bad games with him either. I'm just going to kind of keep expecting that going forward. And then the other guy I'm going to have in this tier is going to be Darren Waller, who I know was not good whatsoever this past week. That entire game was really, really gross. Honestly, Darren Waller too, he was open in the back of the end zone for one of the touchdowns that they could have had. And it really just seems like this offense needs him, and I'm just hoping that they can get him going more because he's out in the field. There's nobody outplaying him or out producing him at the position. This offense just has not been able to figure it out whatsoever. But like I talked about with Daniel Jones, this week they are playing the Miami Dolphins, which is a really bad defense. At least I don't know if they're really bad, but they just have not been performing like a lot of people expected them to. So I think that this could be a spot where Darren Waller can bounce back. I'm really hoping for it. And then into the next tier, it's going to be, man, tight end position is so gross, but I'm going to have George Kittle here, who has not been he had one good week for fantasy so far, but he is just so talented. This offense is so good that if you got him, like, you're taking your shot with him every single week because he can help win you a week for sure. But I don't think we're going to get any consistency whatsoever this year. Honestly, very similar to the next guy I have ranked here as well, Dallas Goedert. He has also not been good whatsoever for fantasy. The coaching staff has talked about getting him more involved, so I'm hoping that we can see that this week. But so far, these guys have both been massive disappointments. But just given how the tight ends are laid out and what the other options are, you don't really got much better options out there. Now, if you're totally over playing these guys and having them crush you, by all means, try to pick someone else up and play for them. The next guy I have is, if he's on your waiver wire, you can absolutely pick him up and play him this week over these guys. I have Jake Ferguson next. He's been getting a ton of targets and has been decently productive with them. Now they are playing the Niners this week, so that is a scary defense, but a lot of times in those hard games, those short checkdowns to guys like tight ends and running backs can be useful. So he could get a bunch of targets, but just might not be very effective with them. But I totally understand if you want to play him over Kittle and Goddard. And then the other guy I have in this tier is going to be Tyler Higbee. He saw like 11 targets last week, which is really crazy to see, but also nice to see because you don't really get that a lot with the tight end position. Now there is that possibility of Cooper Kupp coming back this week. He's still going to be out in the field, but once Kupp is back, I don't think his target volume will be much of anything. So you're going to want to take advantage of him while you can for right now. And then into my last tier, my tight end 11, I have Dalton Kincaid here. He's definitely been a part of this offense, but he is sharing with Dawson Knox, which has definitely kind of taken away from his upside. But if you watch the game, you can see he looks very fluid when he catches the ball, and definitely a part of this offense. This offense is so good that you always want to take that shot if you can, but he definitely has a really low floor at the tight end position. But I mean, I guess at this point, like when you're to the tens of tight ends, everybody does, so it doesn't really matter. But he is a part of the good offense, young and explosive, so there's not a lot of other guys like that out there that you can get. On the opposite end, I'm going to have Zach Ertz next, who is very old but has been getting targeted a ton in his offense. And so when you're getting 7, 8, even 10 targets a game, that's going to be valuable for fantasy, especially at the tight end position. Hasn't really been able to do much with them, but when you're getting that volume, you got to at least be in the streaming conversation. So you could do a lot worse than Zach Ertz this week. After him, I'll have Cole Kmet. This might be coming out after the game, so might not really matter, but he had 2 touchdowns last week. Very, very encouraging to see. I don't think Justin Fields is going to be throwing all those touchdowns every single week, so can't really rely on that, but he's obviously a part of this offense and one of the main targets in it. So if you're low on options and just need somebody to stream, you could definitely pick up Cole Kmet and do that. Up next, I got Hunter Henry, who is still a good option for fantasy. He scored those first couple of weeks and it seemed really exciting, but this offense is really the main problem here. They are terrible, and they're playing the Saints this week, which is a great defense. So I'm definitely a little bit scared of Henry and the options in New England this week, but just with how involved Henry's been and how many touchdown opportunities that he does get, he's still got to be in that streaming conversation. And then the last guy in the top 15 I'm going to have is going to be Luke Musgrave, rookie tight end for the Packers. He didn't really do anything at all last week, but he got hurt pretty early into the game, so that is something we're going to have to watch for this week, where if he's actually going to be able to play. But he's another rookie who was very, very involved in this offense, the clear tight end 1 on this team, and he has just missed on a couple different plays that would have been massive breakaway touchdowns. So I think there's going to be a breakout game coming for him, and you're definitely going to want to get him before that happens. Yeah, here are my top 15 tight ends for this week. Man, the tight end position is just so gross. I don't even like really doing these rankings because it is just disgusting, but I hope it helps some people out. If you have questions, just let me know. And also let me know if there's any other content you want to see for this week. I don't got anything planned, but definitely can get around to it if you want it. So yeah, just let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.